Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. I'm Colin, and today we're doing a review of the brand new Eidola album, Men. Alright, guys, so this is the sixth full-length album from Utah-based post-hardcore, experimental hardcore, prog band Eidola. This is definitely their most accessible record to date, I would say. It's a lot more toned down, it's a lot more stripped back, definitely less metal leaning and more pop leaning than some of their previous output. But it definitely still has the signature Eidola sound, and if you're a fan of the band, this is definitely an album that you're going to enjoy. Now, they are, on Blue Swan Records, which is Will Swan's record label, and they are pretty affectionately known in that scene, at least, as what's called a SWANCORE band. So, one of these bands is kind of taken off of Will Swan's guitar style. Will Swan being the, founder, or one of the founders and lead guitarist of the band Dance Gavin Dance. So I feel like SWANCORE bands, you really kind of know if you like them or not. They're one of those types of bands, one of those subgenres within the alternative community that you either really like or you don't. So if you're not a fan of those types of bands, you're not going to enjoy this album. But if you are, I think you're really going to like it. So before we get into the track list and my breakdown of the music, let's talk about the release. So first off, I absolutely love Eidola's artwork, especially in their last three albums, or even last four. I'm trying to remember the album cover before The Architect, but on The Architect, on their last album Eviscerate, and then on this one Men, they all have this character of the Architect, and it's really, really cool. I love the intricate sort of fractal-ish geometric designs built into the character. I'm not going to get into the lore of Eidola and the backstory of the concept that's happening throughout all these albums, but this fits in very well with where they're at in the storyline. If you want to check it out, I might end up doing a video about the lore at a later date, or you can go look online. But yeah, I absolutely love the artwork. I got the Aqua and Emerald Ghostly variant, which is really cool. I'll take that out in a sec. I've already transferred this to an external sleeve, but take a look at the outer sleeve itself. So again, a little bit better close up on that. Again, I just absolutely love this artwork. I think it's incredible. The back is very simple, very minimalist. It's got this kind of lotus flower looking design with just the track list laid out, side one and side two. On the inside, you've got this really cool flower sort of, again, sort of fractally designed, but flowers kind of stemming out from the mask. So yeah, I absolutely love it. You've got the personnel right here, and then some credits and thank yous over here. It is important to note this is a gatefold, but there's not anything on this side. So you just have this side right here. On the inside of it, though, you do get the actual printed sleeve. So you've got more of that kind of nature design on this side, which fits in really well with the theme of the album. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And then this cool, hands made out of broken porcelain type of artwork, and then some sort of prayer in Latin, Ave Maria. Is this just Ave Maria? I don't think so. I don't think this is actually lyrics to Ave Maria, but it's definitely a prayer in Latin. I don't speak Latin, nor do I pay super close attention to most prayers, so I'm not sure. And then you do have this insert as well that's got the track list on it. And you've clearly, I can sort of start seeing the theme of the album, where it's very ethereal. Definitely a lot of allegories to heaven or a higher plane or something like that. And then lastly is the record itself. So yeah, it's definitely one of the coolest variants I've ever gotten. So I've got that right here. Take it out. It's this gorgeous, again, aqua and kind of seafoam green. It is a splatter, but it's not really it is a splatter, I guess, technically, but then the label is super cool. It's got this sort of flower design on one side, and then that not necessarily the same lotus, but a similar kind of star pattern on the other side. So absolutely love the physical release. 10 out of 10 for me. There's not much more I would want out of this. Maybe a poster or a full-on booklet, but honestly, they do have an insert, and that's more than a lot of bands are doing these days. So I do really enjoy that aspect of it. As far as how it sounds, So the sound quality is pretty good. A couple little cracks and pops here and there, but nothing too crazy. I feel like that's been a pretty common trend on some colored records recently. When I initially got this record, there was on track 2 of side 2, there was a defect, so it got stuck in like a little loop. But the last couple times I played it, it's not there. So that's cool. I don't know what happened with that. Hopefully it doesn't come back. I can see like a couple imperfections on the pressing, but the last 2 times I played it through, it did not do that. So all things considering, really, really solid physical release. I'm very happy with it. Rise Records is doing a pretty good job recently of their output. And yeah, so that's going to be it for the physical review. Now let's talk about the music itself. All right, so I definitely kind of talked about it earlier, but this is easily their most like approachable album, at least if you're not a SWANCORE fan or a like post-hardcore fan or an experimental hardcore fan, just because they went really pop heavy on some of this. I mean, there's like a ballad, there's some like really just classic pop songwriting with like the hooks and choruses, but there's definitely still a lot of like classic Eidola flavor on it. They still have like the intricate guitar parts. They still have the sort of like chill breakdowns or some heavier parts. I was overall very, very pleased with this album. I know if you are looking for something a little bit on the heavier side, it's probably not going to scratch that itch, but it's well written. There's some beautiful songs on it, and it starts off with Brahmin Garden of Eden. So this is basically just a straight up like orchestral sort of thematic opening track. It's very atmospheric. It definitely sets the tone for the album. It's going to be something a little bit different than their last album, which was Eviscerate. Eviscerate might be like the hardest thing that they've ever put out. So it's kind of a dual album. So this is the mend to Eviscerate. So it's the healing after the damage. But then we get into Prodigy, which was, I can't remember if it was the first or second single they released from this, but it's definitely one of their just like most straight up pop rock tracks. Definitely it's this new, well, not new, but it's this subgenre that I've seen emerge in like the last probably like decade really, of harder bands just leaning heavily into like the more pop aesthetics. I affectionately call it popcore, but I know that's not like an officially recognized term or anything like that. But a lot of bands have done it. I mean, Devil Wears Prada's done it. Freaking I See Stars is doing it right now. There's a handful of other ones. Bring Me the Horizons messed around with it a little bit. Like a lot of just like, not necessarily like traditionally heavy metal bands, although a couple of those are not heavy metal, but like, harder, heavier, like deathcore, metalcore bands, just going in a more like pop direction. And this definitely has some elements of that. It's a fun song. It's definitely not my favorite on it, but it's well written. It's catchy. The drums are fairly bouncy and playful. The guitar work is fairly straightforward. Like you're missing out on some of the intricate like finger tapping that you get on some of their other stuff. But overall, it's a fine song. It's just like a little bit forgettable for me. But then after that, we get into Empire of Light. And this one, it just starts off like really, really strong. It's got a super catchy hook right off the bat. The guitar leads a little funky on this. The drums are a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more intricate. The vocals, Andrew's vocals, are still pretty light and airy over this. And there is some like harder parts and like some screaming towards like the middle and end. So overall, it feels like we're getting a little bit more into like the classic Eidola sound on this song. From there, we get into My Father's House. Now, this one's got like almost like indie rock vibes. Like I'm getting some like almost Manchester Orchestra kind of feels from this. It's good. It's definitely, again, a little bit simpler as far as the instrumentals go, but the chorus is still catchy. The vocals are still pretty pop heavy. But it's not a super interesting song. It's not a bad song, but it's not one that like I felt warranted numerous repeat listens from me outside of like the listens that I've done up leading to this point. But this is definitely an album that I'm going to listen to like front to back a couple of times. So I don't mind having this song on here. It's a little bit of a change of pace from like what I would come to expect or want from an Eidola album. But then we get into Kaleidoscope, and Kaleidoscope might be my favorite or one of my favorite songs on the album. It's got really quick, intricate guitar work, like very traditional SWANCORE coded. The drums are like fast and you got some blast beats, but then they like take a step back, when they need to be a little bit more subtle. The breakdown here is absolutely gorgeous until it's not, and then it gets like really brutal. Andrew's vocals are incredible on this song. The chorus is incredibly catchy. I'm going to say that probably a couple times, but like they really kind of nailed some of the just earworm-esque choruses on this album that just kind of get stuck in your head. But yeah, this song's an absolute banger. Definitely top 3 on the album for me. It might be my favorite. I don't know. I haven't like fully made that decision yet. But yeah, definitely like everything you want in a good classic Eidola song. And it's nice that, you know, at this point, I am at least experiencing something that I was kind of expecting to hear. And I enjoy the direction the band went on this album for sure, but it's nice to have at least a couple tracks that feel like you're still listening to the band that you know and love. After that is A Pearl in a Dead Sea. Now, this is an interesting track. So it starts off very like electronic heavy, a little glitchy. I get like almost Thrice Water EP off of this. You know, it does kick up a little bit. Like there's some rock elements that are thrown in, but it's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely not what I was expecting. The drums on this song are still absolutely incredible, and I think the drums, at least on this album in particular, are really what's carrying it for me. Like they're just so good, even when they're not like crazy and in your face. They're still done incredibly well. The bridge has got like this little acoustic guitar part that's really cool, and yeah, it's nice to see something a little bit different, but still, again, fits very well into like the framework of the album. And then after that, we get Blood in the Water, which this also might be a top 3 song for me. It's, again, hard-hitting, catchy. The guitar work here is really, really cool. There's like moments of it that remind me a little bit of Polyphia. Obviously not like to that level, but like, you know, similar sounds to an extent. This whole song is like, it's a little bit restrained, I think, but that's kind of the theme of this album, is like even when they're going more rock or like more, you know, intricate and like traditional on their like post-hardcore sound, it's still a little bit laid back. It's still supposed to be like kind of ethereal and more floaty and more I don't know, it sits a little bit differently from some of their other stuff. But on songs like this, they blend that really well with like just some really good instrumentation, and the vocal work here is still absolutely incredible. Even the screams here are pretty like chill and laid back. But then we get into the second half of the album, which kicks off with Renaissance. And Renaissance is just a straight up like piano driven ballad. It's fun, it's beautiful, it's very much just like a love song. And there's parts of it that I don't love. Like they use some auto tuning a little bit in Andrew's vocals, like here and there, which are not great. But overall, it's a fun kind of break in the album and gets you ready for part 2, which then gets into what it means to be alone. So this is starts off with this kind of like driving, almost synthwave beat. And it definitely keeps that kind of electronic feel throughout the majority of the song, even when it does have some more like rock oriented bits. It's good. It's got, again, really, really good drums on it. Andrew's vocals here are a little bit restrained. They're not like terrible. They're never bad. I mean, I think he's a good singer. I know some newer Dance Gavin Dance fans will probably disagree with me, but I've always really enjoyed his voice. And you know, I think though on slower songs like this, it's clear to see like where he does lack as a vocalist. I think he's still incredibly talented. I think he's getting better, but it's clear that there's like certain moments where he can't necessarily carry the song by himself. And this might be one of those, but still a fun track. And I do like the moments that are a little bit more like electronic coded, at least on the album so far. After that is Restore Me, featuring the After Hour, who I'm not familiar with. I might check them out. It's interesting. The first like only really like feature on the album, the vocals do play off each other pretty well. It's a slow poppy intro, but like the guitars do pick up. They get a little fast, a little playful. The drums, again, phenomenal throughout. Same with the bass. Like the rhythm section is really holding the song down. But then like halfway towards the end, it gets into like this interesting sort of hip hop beat, and the vocals get almost straight up like R&B. It's a weird shift. It doesn't not work, but it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. But it definitely keeps you guessing. I mean, the tempo and the vibes shift and change pretty regularly, but it's still a good song. And then we get into the last few songs on the album, starting with the Faustian Spirit. So this was, again, I don't know if this or Prodigy were the first or second singles. I can't remember what order they came out in, But I was like hearing the Prodigy, I was like, all right, it's an interesting direction. Like, I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go with it. But then listening to the Faustian Spirit, this song is incredible. This is like, again, everything that you pretty much want out of an Eidola song. It's got like this great, just sweeping guitar intro. It's definitely one of the most classic songs on the album as far as like true SWANCORE vibes go. The screams are incredible here, especially like mixed in and out with Andrew's clean singing. There's not much screaming on this album, but where like they do bring it in, I think it works super well. The drums, again, absolutely incredible. The breakdown here is brutal. It's super well done. It has got almost like a bit of a mathcore vibe to it, that like there's not enough bands out there that are even experimenting with that subgenre anymore. So I'm always happy to see like that happen. But yeah, absolutely banger track. Like, love it to death, and probably gonna be one of my favorite songs of the year for sure. This is also probably within like that top 3 category. But as I say that, I get into the next song, which is Godhead, the Final Temple, and this one also. So I guess I've got a top 5, which, you know, considering there's only like 10 or 11 songs on the album, it's not bad. But this song is absolutely incredible. It might be like the best written song just musically on the album. It starts off with the screaming, and again, similar to Faustian Spirit, like the combination of the screams and clean singing here works really, really well. The guitar work is, again, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, if you are into this type of guitar work where it's very intricate, a lot of like finger tapping, sweep, stuff like that, but the drums, I mean, just everything together, like it just works so well on this song. It's got like a really spacey, sort of airy bridge that goes into like this really super chill and laid back breakdown. That's kind of becoming like the theme of the album, though, is like all the breakdowns for the most part are pretty chill, pretty relaxed. Even when they're going hard, like they definitely fit the vibe of the album. And yeah, I absolutely love this song. And then it ends with Revelation, the Infinite Beauty of Oneness, which is a great closing track. Like, this is what I talk about when I say that, you know, the best albums have very intentional endings. This song just feels like a good closer. Like, it's laid back, more indie rock coded. It definitely has some like ethereal, like orchestral bits to it, or at least they like come off that way. And it feels like just a sweeping grand finale for an album that is very uplifting. And it's, again, for an album that's called Mend, and the theme of it is like healing and moving forward and just being at peace. Like, it's a great way to close the album. It's very, even like the light screaming that they have here just comes off as very cathartic. So this album was really, really fun. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I'm glad that my pressing doesn't have that defect anymore, or I don't know what happened there, but I am going to be enjoying listening to this one pretty regularly throughout the year. Again, though, if you are not into this kind of music, if you don't like pop-leaning post-hardcore bands, I don't think you're going to love them. Definitely check out some of their older stuff. That might be a little bit more your speed if you're into like progressive post-hardcore type stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's got a strong B+ from me. I think there were moments that they could have done just like a little bit more, which is keeping it out of the A category. But overall, really pleased with this release, and excited to see what else the band decides to come out with. I know that there was talk of them taking like a brief hiatus while Andrew does focus on being the frontman for Dance Gavin Dance, but hopefully that doesn't last too long. Well, cool, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments if you've listened to this album, what you think. If you haven't, go check it out. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.